8 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order and begin by the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show that Councilman Warner has contacted us and he will not be in attendance today. So we're ready to begin. Mr. Lauber, would you come and share with us, update us on the Bowen Center?
Morning. Good morning. So a couple of big organization changes for us as far as the corporate office goes. After 33 years with Bowen, our CEO, Kurt Carlson, is retiring, so we're going to let him. And Rob Ryan will be taking over. We'll still have Jay Baumgardner as, well, he's actually moving from Senior Vice President of Finances to officially our CFO. So that's great news. And then Shannon Hannon, who you have not met yet, she will be our COO. So she's moving from Vice President of Integrated Care into COO. So just a brief overview of the changes coming in July for our new fiscal year. But why I'm here is last year at the end of the calendar year, I talked to Paula and met with the commissioners about using our county funding to provide services in the jail. And so Community Corrections would let us know when an assessment would be appropriate to see if the inmates would be appropriate to move into Community Corrections or work release. So we said, sure, we will cover that need. So we've done 9 assessments since November in the jail. Fortunately, we actually haven't had to use any county money, any county funding, because we have 2 other grants that have covered us. So as far as the county funding goes, we have had individuals come in and ask for free services, which we call charity care, and then also some sliding fee scale we've used to cover some of the funding, like half or more than half of some services offered for individuals that need our assistance. So that's where most of our county funding has gone. For the jail specifically, though, we've been fortunate. Most of those individuals we've used LCC money for because it's drug and alcohol related, the assessment that we do. And so we have some funding that we've been able to use for that. So as far as the jail goes, in the original conversation, we haven't had to use any of the county funding for those services. Now, if we get to the point where we run out of the other funding, we definitely will tap into the county funding for that. Any questions? Does that make sense?
Just in general, yeah. You mentioned charitable.
Yeah.
Can you give us an approximate number of how many families or individuals are receiving that benefit?
Well, we had just printed off, I have the paperwork back at my seat, but I didn't bring it up because it has names on it. But I know it's like 13 pages of services that we've provided. So close to 75,000. I know the total number, but as far as families go, Jackie, do you know how many?
The total number's fine.
Okay.
That's that number of appointments or rather than individuals. Yeah.
Yep. It's okay.
So about our patients, about let's say about 50% are either on a sliding scale fee. Up until right now, that's the previous started. Sliding scale
Charity care. Jackie's our office manager.
Are you guys looking at a relocation in the county?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Tim. So the corner where Superior Auto is, the 205 and 30, the corner just across from Parkview, we purchased the Superior Auto and the house next door. And so we're currently having the land surveyed because there's some wetlands there that we need to take care of before we start building. We don't have a projected timeline. We did, and it continues to get moved back, unfortunately. So I wish I could be more clear on what that timeline looked like. But I would say probably still 2 years out before we have something built and get moved out there. And that would be our FQHC, which I think I talked to you last time about that, but it would be primary care along with mental health services. So just serving the total body.
Okay, help us understand the difference between primary care and mental health services.
Okay, so primary care would be physical health. So sprained ankle, broken arm, stitches, minor cuts and bruises. We would deal with those types of things. We're not going to have x-rays there. We're not going to perform any surgeries there, any of that, but that's physical health. And so then psychiatry and psychology would be mental health. So psychiatrist is able to prescribe medication, and a psychologist would do most of the testing for a more specific diagnosis that you may have as far as mental health goes. So 2 different kinds of medications could be prescribed, but one is strictly physical health and the other one is mental health or behavioral health. They kind of go interchange.
Physical only for people who are already part of the clients of Bowen Center? Is that open to the public?
It would be open to the public, yep.
And receive insurance and all of those other issues?
Yep.
As a first step before going to the emergency room?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Emergency room, well, I shouldn't say that, because if it's a broken arm, we wouldn't be able to do the x-ray for it. So we might send you next door, and then maybe your outpatient services would come to us. But really our target population is uninsured or non-insured, or Medicaid, which is really what Parkview is. I mean, they will serve those people, but it's not their target population. So we're trying to come alongside of them to provide that care to individuals that might have to wait a long time to get into Parkview. And we're hoping that we will have a shorter wait time for those individuals since they don't have insurance. Were you gonna ask something?
I was going, just to go along with that, is that going to be like a 24-hour clinic, 8 hours during the day? What do you envision?
Right now, we haven't really discussed that, but I think it'll go along with the mental health. I know it's not going to be 24 hours to start. Eventually we might get to that. It's really going to be based on the providers that we get, the doctors that we get in there. So it'll be around their schedule, but not 24 hours to start. I know that. So I'm assuming 8 to 7, which is what our hours are now.
Has this been modeled in the Bowen Center elsewhere in the region?
Yeah, we have 3 clinics now. So we have a clinic in Warsaw, we have a clinic in Huntington, and we have a clinic in Fort Wayne, in Allen County. So 3 different models so far.
And the way the county funding is set up as a certified provider, is that kept separate and none of those funds would be available for physical, or they would be?
Yep, they would be.
Okay.
Yep, it would go right into that. Yeah. So we'll be able to provide a lot more with that county funding going into the physical health. Yeah, we'll be able to do like what Jackie said with the fee assistance and the charity care. We'll be able to use all that funding in the primary care too.
One more question.
Okay.
You mentioned the drug and rehab situation.
Yeah.
Are you guys currently working and providing services to the folks that are going to Park Center as well? Or is that totally separate? When they go-
Totally separate. Yep. We have really the only, the overlap that I can think of would be if they're in the jail MRT group. Bowen Center runs that MRT group. And then Park Center might have provided an assessment for that individual that's in our MRT group. So that's really the only overlap that we see. Or if an individual gets upset with Bowen Services and then goes to Park Center, or gets upset with Park Center and goes to Bowen Center, we would see some overlap there, which it happens. And that's okay. As long as we're serving the need together, I think that's what matters.
Any more questions? Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
having me.
The driving and vehicle use policy is not ready for us yet. CF1 approvals for abatement. Dale, would you like to come and address this?
Yeah, hi, Dale Booth, Whitley County Economic Development. So obviously for all those folks who've been given their personal real property tax abatement, the compliance forms are due May 15th of this year. It was May 17th. And as those come in, I review them along with the auditor's office and the auditor. And if we see anything as far as maybe employment's not where it was on the original SB1 when the abatement was granted, we check into that. But last year we had several employers that we had some questions about, but for the most part, as Tiffany and I have reviewed all those, we are very satisfied with the condition of the CF1s as far as investment and employment numbers for those who are wishing to continue and get favorable pass on the compliance. So if we would have had an exception, we'd have brought it here, we'd have brought the company. So at least for the ones that have been presented to you today, we have reviewed them and we are happy with the status.
Anything to add?
I think Kim would like to speak on behalf of at least one for her office.
Had correspondence with them back on May 9th and May 10th.
And I did reach out to Gator Cases and didn't get a response on that one, so I apologize.
Wasn't he slow last year?
Yeah, then he came in here and talked about it. So that Gator Cases was one of the few Whitley County companies that did struggle during the COVID process. A lot of other companies had record years, but because of the amount of work they have involved in like high school and college bands and the cases they do for musical instruments for that, and as all that stuff stopped, they've struggled to recover.
So procedurally, what happens next with Gator case?
You don't approve that, they just don't get that abatement this year, which is, that is your right to say they're not compliant.
And do we contact them or it's just
Yeah,
automatic?
I'm happy on behalf of everyone to contact them, explain what the treasurer's position was, what the council's position is, and tell them that, you know, they can have another chance next year if they remedy this. So I'll take that moving forward for the council.
Thank you. We have a few options on how to proceed. You can either say to the chairman, you review them, and if you see anything of concern, bring it back next month. We can share the reviews, and you can all take some up in the auditor's office later today, or we could individually read each company. What's the preference of the council?
As in the past, I would like to see the chairman do the review. With the exception of Gator cases, and leave that open until we come in compliance. I do make that a motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would say to add to what John said, not only Gator, but anybody else that you find that you feel is out of compliance, that you
Certainly.
bring that back to us, even though I'm sure that you've done your diligence.
No, but yeah, I agree with that.
Yes.
And the quick observation is that not everyone has necessarily met their hiring goals, but it's close and nobody's meeting their hiring goals right now. So I think that would have to be a very large number or significant percentage for me to bring that back. Are we in agreement with that? Or do you want exact compliance?
Well, I mean,
That's gonna be-
a percent, like 1 or 2 off of an estimate that was made several years ago, it's, I think, still pretty good. But like you said, it's, people call all the time. It's like, hey, Dale, we need more people. A lot of these folks who, if they are behind, are only because they can't find workers, not because they didn't make the investment.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand and let it show that it was unanimous of all voting and present members. Thank you, Dale. Yes, Kim.
Your approval process is only 50% of the approval to the compliance.
Yes.
We don't receive a return from them. Even if we would, they're still not compliant.
So they will lose the abatement for this year, but could continue in the future.
Yes, oh,
Yeah.
It's a yearly.
So basically Dale will make them aware again that they're out of compliance and there won't be an abatement this year, but to continue the process, they have that opportunity. Thank you, Kim. Commissioners report.
As you all know, we've talked about the landfill property, the old county, and possibly to sell that property. There's someone with interest, and we've gone through many steps to move forward with that. I have email traffic from IDAM saying that purchaser would basically assume the responsibilities. They would inherit all post-closure responsibilities associated with the landfill. So I just want to give you an update that we're still moving forward with that. Questions about that right now?
Have you come to an agreement yet as far as a price on the land?
That would need to be raised. So we do not have,
But my question would be, do these emails carry the force of law?
well, we've also hired a Oxford, and he's reviewed it as well. And so that, again, so we assume those responsibilities. So we've done our due diligence. It could appraise at a negative value. Of course, as you know, we spend awful lot on maintaining it and having inspections done. So if someone has interest in it, and someone can get some use from it, and just have to pay for the annual inspection and maintenance. It could be a win-win for the county.
As I recall, one of our big concerns was, is IDEM going to document that we don't have continuing responsibility?
Yeah.
So that was the nature of my question. Okay.
Jail update, yesterday, Tony Rye from Alabatus attended the commissioner meeting, representing the construction manager selection committee. The results of that committee were to recommend the CM, and they did. The committee selected Whitehand Construction, and commissioners accepted their recommendation and talking about the county engineer. As you all know, our previous engineer left. During the process of him asking to separate his two roles, highway and engineer, a recommendation was made by this body to perhaps look into, or I think somebody had asked if we had looked into contracted service, and we said that we were considering all options. So we ended up hiring or contracting with USI, and they've been very helpful, but they're limited on some of the things that they can do. And the strain in the engineering office is great. Mike Knapel is now having to do the calculations, and he's not a PE, but he's doing the calculations for fall and size of pipe, and all those things in drainage. And that's bogging him down to the point where he can't be in the field, and projects are taking longer to complete. And so I personally had a conversation with Dane Drew, our surveyor, and he confirmed that there's a lot of strain in the office. There's a void that needs to be filled. And so we would like to move forward with replacing the county engineer. But that's what we're looking at. My fear, and I think it's a very legitimate fear, is that if we don't do something, we're going to lose additional reports.
Do you have an anticipation on the time frame once you advertise the position?
Well, it's difficult to find employees, period, but let alone a PE, which would be the requirement. And a PE is not, initially I thought, well, let's just go to trying and find a recent grad and do an entry-level engineer. The problem is it takes 5 years as an engineer to be a licensed PE, and we need a license. So that's going to make it even more difficult to find someone. So I have no idea how quickly we can find it. But I think the time is right to at least initiate the process.
Chad, when we do that, then does part of that position get funded by the state?
Yeah, I think it's half. 40,000. And the range from Wagner, Herman, and Shealy is 87 to 100 plus.
As I recall, that's still in the budget from last year.
That's right. Never, the salary's never been removed from the budget. And they're using those funds to pay.
And I think when Mike was hired, I think he was hired as a field man.
Yes.
I mean, that's where his background was. That's where he appears to be very comfortable with. And we need both, you know, many drains as we have and issues in that. I think it's a good idea.
Right. We're fortunate to have Mike because he has the knowledge, but he doesn't have a license. And it's also not what he sees. He doesn't want to. Otherwise, he probably would pursue education and certificates to become a. Not what he wants to do. So we have an approved job description from Wagner and Shealy, and we know what we're looking for. We just want to make sure that everyone here is in approval, and they're going to fund the position in years forward.
What's the funding in the budget right now for that position, Jan?
Well, it would be whatever Brandon was earning this share from the highway department.
Brandon was strictly paid out of highway. He was not paid.
It had to be $40,000 of it though, right?
That came from the state, but we didn't receive that this year because we didn't have an engineer. So, and we won't be able to file for that for this year. That is on. It had to be within the 2 weeks into January. We had to send in paperwork. So that will not be covered for this year.
So do we know what that number is then? Can you look that up?
What they had for Brandon.
Yeah. What's in the budget? Yeah.
Does he have to be paid through the highway to get that 40,000?
Not sure I can find that out.
I mean, I just, for some reason it's stuck in my mind that over the years, it had to be the highway engineer so we could get that 40,000. But I don't know if that's.
Changed the engineer to highway director, because now that is Katie. It was originally appropriated 107. And we've spent for Katie's salary 35,633 out of there. Got rid of that title.
Right, maybe, so the difference, we budgeted it, unfortunately.
I'm not disputing the need for the engineer. It just is the, I guess, office struggle because there's not somebody in charge.
No,
Okay.
no, I think if you spent some time up there, you would find that Mike is very confident, very good, and Jenny is very confident, and is great. Dane spent a lot more time here than what he would think. Everyone is very independent and they function well. I don't think that it's necessarily a lack of leadership because they, you know,
So it's really stress from added shared responsibility.
and I wouldn't care if the engineer's not the department head. We just need to, they can, Jenny, it doesn't matter. But they know what they're doing, but the workload is great because there was more that Brandon was doing that we didn't counter, we didn't know because, well, I mean, we've been in the role forever. And so he had all that institutional knowledge and then he had the knowledge for calculating fall and all those things that
When you post for the job, will that allow for the possibility of a semi-retired PE who would be part-time? Or does it need to be full-time based on your observations?
I can't answer that right now. I don't know, but I'll find out for you.
Any other questions? You technically don't need our approval at this time. You're just looking to ensure that we recognize the problem and will somehow fund it in the future. Is that correct? Any other comments or concerns?
You know, to be fair, USI has been great, but all they can really do is just, they're not gonna do the calculations. They're gonna, it's a great relationship with them. It's just, they're not gonna provide all the services that we need. It's not gonna relieve the strain of that.
Thank you.
Chad, I got a question for you. You don't suppose there's another county that has one that's, he's kind of part-time there that could maybe want to work part-time here too? Is there anybody out there like that? Maybe you
I'm
could,
not sure that I'd be happy to call like Huntington and Noble and maybe even, I doubt Council would have a part-time. They probably have a full, Allen County has a full, but I'd be happy to call some other counties and ask.
might be worth a try to see if somebody like that's out there.
In previous meetings, we were asked if we could just provide updates on the money that's been appropriated from certain funds and what's been spent to date and what the number is. So currently from the lit correctional rehab facilities. There was $1 million appropriated so that we could cover some of these incoming invoices. And to date, there's been 2 payments out of that. That's one for $3,122.10 and another for $82,500. And so the remaining balance is $914,377.90 from the ARPA funds. There's been an appropriation for $350,000, and from that we've made payments to Baker Tilly and to Motorola. Those Baker Tilly, I'm not going to give you the totals, but I'll give you the remaining balance. $350,000. It's $275,222.57. And we can make copies of this if you would like. Just want to provide that update. And then yesterday's meeting, the commissioners approved, I would say tentatively because it's going to require an ordinance, but we tentatively approved an ARPA plan. This is something that's going to be required by the federal government to have a plan in place for those ARPA funds. And so we approved the funds, and I don't have that paper right in front of me, but we will do that in the form of an ordinance. We received last night an ordinance from Tiffany. And so at our next meeting, I assume we'll approve. Yeah. But of those funds, we did earmark some money for broadband. And Commissioner Green is here and or Commissioner Basinger, sorry, and has a representative from CERF. And we would just like to give you an update and share a little bit of a vision. And that way, when we do bring the ARP plan ordinance, you'll have a better understanding of how we're pushing it.
Morning, Council. As you guys know, I've been working on ways that we can improve broadband infrastructure in the county. And Surf Broadband, Steve Purender, did I pronounce your last name correctly? Close enough. He is here to represent them. If you remember the last time I filled in for Commissioner Banks, I let you guys know that they were putting about $10 million of their own money into the county. However, that's mostly the heavily populated areas, so it's not really going to get to those rural areas. It's a real concern. So in the ARPA funds, as commissioners, we were thinking, what can we do that this money is going to have a lasting effect, because our kids and grandkids and great grandkids are going to be paying back this debt. So how can we most affect those people? We'll get you that information on what was passed, and I can actually get the ARPA plan that we passed yesterday as commissioners for you guys to look at before you guys leave if you would like. And in that budget, we have earmarked $1.7 million to get the internet to those rural homes. Right now, there are a lot of grants out there. There are like 80-20 grants, so meaning we would have to fill in the 20%. So that's what that pot of money would be for. Surf Broadband, I think they allocated $1,025 per household.
Yeah, around 1250.
Okay, so for instance, just looking at worst case scenario like Jefferson Township, some of those homes, there would never be an argument for business to go there because there's just no money to be made. There, it's around $2,500. So then that pot of money would fill in everything after the $1,200. So yes, so next month, they're going to have a little bit, we'll know a little bit more, well, a lot more, correct?
Yeah, so we'll know the total number of households being passed with our contribution and the ARPA contribution put together. So, and then we'll have maps as far as where that is distributed throughout the county. So it will be not just, 4 square miles in Cleveland Township. It's going to be in different areas to get the most homes passed for the money.
Yes, so, and they're currently building out the Columbia City phase. So do you guys have any questions of Steve right now?
Steve, where do you come up with the number of the 1225 per household? How's that determined
Yeah, sure.
as far as your investment?
That's essentially a break-even analysis based on our costs for the construction, our operating costs for what we call transport or getting Whitley County connected to the internet, overhead, and then the average revenue per user. So what we call ARPU. So matching those all together, we have a break-even of about 50 per household that we can contribute. So in an area, not to get too specific, but one area that we're looking at is Stable Acres. It's on 14 there, just west of Micropulse. So for us to get to Stable Acres, connected to the internet, we're going to have to get to existing network resources that are 3 1/3 miles away. In that 3 1/3 mile pathway, we're only passing 19 homes. And we don't know how many of those homes are occupied at this point. So that extends our network and gets us to a cluster of population. But we need both the federal subsidy as well as our dollars in order to make the business case for that. So when we look at areas like Blue Lake, Tri-Lakes, South Whitley, Larwell, Churubusco, those on their own make their own business case. So without subsidy, without our dollars.
So the 1225 is based on the revenue over a 2-year span, 5-year span, 10-year span?
6 years.
But this still isn't going to get us everywhere in Whitley County.
This will get into pockets and will also extend our network into other areas. So the cost involved is in the density of households that we pass per mile. So there's an area around Raber, in 3/4 of a mile, there's one house. So that cost for that 3/4 of a mile has to be subsidized in some way, because we can't just get it from that one household that may or may not take our service. So that's where it makes it challenging to make the business case without subsidy in the rural areas.
The mechanics of it as per household, it's a radio signal, it's hardwired.
Yeah, good question. This is actually fiber optic. So it's what we consider a future-proof technology. So instead of having a wireless technology that kind of carries on for a couple of years and then has to be upgraded, this is like essentially your residential plumbing or electrical service. You don't replace it, it's there. So it's hardwired in.
It would come off the pole, go underground, wire to the house.
Yep. We have a partnership with Northeastern RMC for their backbone, which would go through Lod, Tunker, South Whitley, Larwell, up to Tri-Lakes, and then through Collins, and then Coessie. So we spur off of that network, and that helps us because we're not building out from our head end. We can take that whole kind of, I guess we consider that whole bypass that goes all the way around the county and spur off into different areas from that.
So you partner with other companies besides REMC, Indiana, Michigan, any of those?
I wish you could. They're tough to partner with. Northeasterns. Eric and everybody at Northeastern is really easy to work with. They're great partners. They're helping us out on connecting all the Whitco schools, and they're also helping us deliver internet for Whitley County community schools through the federal E-rate program.
So after that 6-year time frame, the 6-year window to where you guys are breaking even, and then you're going to start making money based on the calculations, or at least you're still going to be profitable, but just not as profitable maybe as you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that money go then after that 6 years? Is any of that fed back into other rural areas to help expand and to figure out every place? Does anything come back to the county for the contributions that we have put in to get that project done, or is there anything in place for that?
I haven't formalized any kind of proposal for payback or anything like that, but there is a commitment to invest and expand. We can't make a business case on just the subsidized areas. We need more coverage within the county, and more, I guess, an enlarged customer base. So not only are we leveraging Northeastern REMC and possible ARPA dollars, we're leveraging our own and privately invested network in Columbia City to expand from there, both north, south, and east and west. So I hope that answers your question or addresses it in some way.
Addresses it. So if I'm a customer, when I call you guys, where will I be calling to? Will it be local? What kind of a service, or what kind of service can we expect from it as a customer, and
Sure.
and so forth?
Good question again. We have offices in Elkhart, and we have offices in LaPorte. We dispatch our crews out of Elkhart for the installation services. We have agents that we are establishing here in Columbia City. Various like computers, B&E computers, and the satellite dealer on the north side. I forget. Yeah. So no plans for brick and mortar store as of yet, but with Columbia City coming online, and with potentially Whitley County, but I mean we have on our development timeline South Whitley, Larwell, and Churubusco privately funded, because those will be business case based. So not sure when a storefront would be in our plans.
What's the anticipated speed?
It's 1 gigabit to start out with. We can get lower packages than that, but the fiber optic has capabilities of hundreds of gigabits.
Do you have to wait the 6 years to expand out in the rural area?
No, we wouldn't have to. We also plan through the Okra. There will be, we were recipients of about $6 million in Okra and the NLC Next Level Connections Round 3. It's unofficial, but there will be an NLC Round 4. We will apply for it, and as part of that application portfolio, we will include it.
What's the average monthly fee for a homeowner?
About $65 is the average. We do have a package for 50 meg by 50 meg symmetrical service. It's $35 with the, what is it called? The Affordable Connectivity Plan, ACP. That's a $30 subsidy for households that qualify. So you would get internet for $5 per month. So we've already been talking to Whitley County Schools about, making them aware and knowing where their needs are for their students who are underserved and in need of broadband for their homes. So that's a big part of it.
What's the typical hookup fee going to be per resident?
There's no installation fee as long as you're within 200 feet of our, what we call our handhole or our access point. So after 200 feet, I think it's materials and labor costs are changing every 3 minutes, but I think it's about $75 a foot. So if you're 500 feet off the road, let's say, that'd be $225, $235, I guess, your cost that you would pick up for the balance of that install to get back to your home, which we can amortize over a year.
I believe the ARP funds need to be spent by 2024. Is that correct? Allocated, okay.
So it was hitting and everything has to be built. It has to be spent by because they can kind of expedite everything in the county. All the rural areas that we discussed with the funds, that would typically be looked at.
And our plans are to avoid any Norfolk Southern Railway, Indiana 30, Indiana 9, as best we can. So those are usually end up being wild cards as far as getting easements crossed.
So I know it's been a little bit of a struggle kind of getting started with the actual installation.
Yeah.
Are you working out the bugs in Whitley County and with those people at Mark Utilities and those kind of things so that you won't be slowed?
Yeah, we've had a kind of a perfect storm with USIC being incredibly busy, both with other fiber providers and NIPSCO, which is their largest customer. And then NDOT was an issue and Norfolk Southern was also an issue. But I can clearly say that we have our first customers turned up as of yesterday. So
Fantastic.
we lit our first customers. Our construction plans are for us to be down to Van Buren Street by the end of July. So
Great.
basically here. And then by September, we'll be all the way down, almost to, is it Big G's? Used to be kind of close, yeah, about down to there. Trying to think of the other areas. And then south of there, and then east of town, looking around June of next year. Just kind of shuts down in the winter months. It makes too much of a mess. And there's too much snow piled up anymore, so.
Other questions? Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Basinger.
Thank you. All right, thanks. Next month, I can go on in detail.
We'll make sure you're on the agenda. Chad?
If you want to mark your homes in pencil on a map.
With a pencil so you can erase
I
it,
will.
because that would be illegal, right?
Why waste the ink?
Okay, we have the minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as prepared?
I'll make a motion.
So motion, do I have a second now?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion, any additions, corrections, changes that anyone sees to be made? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand and let it show that all voting present passed unanimously. Commissioner Barrett,
I have nothing.
Commissioner Western,
Nothing.
Commissioner Argerbright, Commissioner Hodges,
I have nothing.
Commissioner Wheeler.
I have a question for the commissioner. How soon on this art money do you really need to know? Would you need to know here shortly or by next meeting, or when's best for?
So we're gonna do like, photo copy what we talked about yesterday, and we can take a look at it. And then we can go over it, but. I know that your retrofitting the jail was one of the biggest costs in there, but I'm not sure what's going on with that. I guess you don't have to go through the entire plan, then we would pretty soon need to come out to you and retrofit current jail to fit corrections. So I think you can approve everything but that, and then we would need to come up with, that obviously is very restrictive.
Follow up on that. You're presenting a plan. Is there an option in there to say circumstances have changed and now we want to alter the plan or not?
You can, it's fairly broad, so there's broadband, PPP that you're obviously, that's not what you need to do for infrastructure. There's one more, so we kind of put all those in, obviously we have, ideas like for infrastructure, we want to upgrade the sewer district. And the county department, they're, really struggling with all the escalation costs. And we're, sure that those are taken care of, even in this, session that we're about to experience, keep them going. Our assembly marking, about $500,000 for the 2 years to get, Katie and the highway department through so we can keep the roads in good shape. I know that we spent some on the financial. So there are things, but the big thing, I guess, we need to figure out, any corrections and what's going on with that, and then, if not, I guess we'll have to come up with that last chunk.
I guess my more specific question was, does the federal government allow for the ordinance to allow for potential adjustment in the time period? You know, if you needed to, if something catastrophic happened and we needed to change, are we legally able to do that once we approve a plan?
Well, there's the ordinance.
I know.
So,
That's just my concern.
and that was a question that I had as well. What kind of authority then do we have to deviate from the plan? Which I'm sure that's only be allowed.
I think it's how the worksheets are ordered. I think the county has made sure to put an amendable plan.
Okay.
I believe government just wants to see that you have a plan that fits within the 4 categories that you'll be utilizing those funds. Otherwise, they're gonna want that.
No, I'm glad that that's already part of your thought process. Thank you. Anything else?
No, that's it.
I would just like to make note of the beginning of the Whitley County Teen Court Summer Program that was announced in the paper, and just commend the courts and community service and youth services for everything that is involved in that. I think it can have a positive, significant impact in our community. So I'm glad that that's going forward this summer. Any comments from the general public? Hearing none, I adjourn the meeting.
You know those phones that you put in a few years ago? Like, all of the county,
Oh, those are great.